Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Berwick St John show. And if you've just joined us and you're feeling a little bit peckish, it's 12:30 now, then down at the beer tents on the tea tents, they have a great offering in store for you. But one of the shows for today is.
Well, I do hope you're enjoying it. We've got interrupted there by the loudspeaker, but this is Peter's, and it's a bit different this year. There's like steam engines here and all kinds of things around here to look at. So there's lots of things happening. So there's lots of tractors, lots of different things here today, as you can see. These are Land Rovers here. Rescue Land Rover that you've probably used. I've seen them with some of these Land Rovers on Hartley. Lots of steam engines here anyway. People getting rides on things. There's some interesting trucks here. Donald Cook, Sons, and interesting trucks here.
But then my dad, when he restored it, he painted it black, which is not the right.
I didn't expect you to
come down a little bit, Dan.
I like the blue cars, don't you? The Morris Minor cars over there. Well, this is amazing. This is a Mark Reverend Timon. It's like a breakdown truck they would have used some years ago now. I don't know, it might be in the 60s. So it would have been around there. Amazing, isn't it? Berwick St John livestock haulage, you know. There's cars here, little cars there.
We've got the sheep shearing on one corner, the dog show down on the other corner. Go to the right, round, these particularly being used by the trailers to spread line. Not the car and stop behind where we are situated. Very, very peaceful. We're back from They've gone over to what's known as min-till, or minimum cultivation, which is more economical, frankly. That's what it's all about, is getting the job to a more economical standard. So we got this Case IH tractor leading round. I'm a little bit rusty on the current models of these tractors. So there we are, I say that 175, a Case IH, a Case Puma with a sward lifter on the back. That is obviously an instrument that you would pull through grass fields to lift it up and get a bit more air in. Grass needs a bit of lightness in the soil, can I put it, to encourage it to grow. If it gets tramped down very heavily and bogged down, you don't get the growth. And of course, grass fields are all about
single cylinder tractor. They were good workers, but the trouble was they're only single cylinder, and then all the nuts on the plough, if you were ploughing, the nuts would all fall off because it was single cylinder and it pumped this way. One is a standard, that's a Ford.
That's an N, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's a pre-war one because it's orange with wide wings.
Right, yeah.
Later on in the war, they actually painted them green because when the German bombers were coming over, a big row of these bright orange tractors outside the factory was an ideal marker point for them. So they started painting them dark green, and they also had very narrow mud guards because they saved metal that way. So another one of Richard Pocock's. And then we've got a High Mary, as they used to call them in our part of the world, or an E27N Major, which is the next model after the Standard. This one has still got the original petrol TVO engine in. They weren't very powerful, really, 27 horsepower. So later on, they started fitting the diesel engine, Perkins diesel, into them.
That's the type of tractor that I drove. It's going by now.
What about this one then? We got this Case coming.
Case, yes, I've driven the Case. There weren't many of those about, not the Case tractors, but they were quite good. Well, all tractors nowadays were good.
I bet you don't know which model it is, do you?
No.
No, neither do I. Never mind. So we got another Marshall now, which is one of the last, I think. We got, this is a Series 3, isn't it? On the last of the Marshalls, they got the engine running the other way. You'll notice this one goes anti-clockwise, and the earlier model that's coming behind it, if you look again, you'll see that it actually runs clockwise. The idea of changing it round, the rotation round, was they thought that it wouldn't meet up with the baler strokes quite so badly and get the whole thing shaking to quite such a degree. So there we are, lovely selection of Marshall tractors. Then we got the first of our grey Fergies coming round now. Little TEF. Ferguson, for some reason, always called the TED the petrol paraffin one, and then the TEF was the diesel one. Just to make it as illogical as possible. Well, Malcolm's come to join us now, who is also a pretty useful man on tractors.
I drove one of these before.
A 342, yeah?
Yeah, they're very fast tractors, they were.
Yeah, Nuffields. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fitted with 3-point linkage, as a lot of these more modern tractors are. You know what model that is, Malcolm?
It looks to me like a John Deere Model D, but I might be wrong. If it is a D, is it a D? It is a Model D. That was the longest tractor that John Deere had in production. And the production, I believe, started back in the 20s and ended in the 50s. And they remained pretty well the same throughout the production range. And as they say, not a lot of people know that.
Well, we're now going up to a different era, different age of tractors. We look as though we're coming up into the 60s now, led by a bright yellow Ferguson. Now, that is an industrial tractor. If the council wanted to buy a tractor or it was going to go into any sort of factory work, and renamed it the Ford Force. So there's a couple of small, oh, that's actually an MF20. That's the 20, I think, was a French-built tractor, wasn't it? Although no, it's a banner lane one. It's got the banner lane back end. That's an industrial number, isn't it, the 20? So there's the Ford 3000, which, as Malcolm says, followed on from the Dexter. In fact, originally they called them the Dexter, didn't they? Well, indeed, for a while, because they wanted people to get used to the idea. Then we've got a Ferguson 35. That's the predecessor to the first Ferguson we saw, the red one. Beautifully restored in red and grey. And that's followed by its predecessor, the little grey Fergie, one of the later ones, the diesel version. And a tractor that didn't reign very long in life, the Leyland 154. Leyland introduced this because they thought it would replace the grey Fergies, but it didn't happen. They didn't sell very many. An International, that's a 414, square front axle, built in the Bradford plant of International. And an unusual Fergie there, you'll notice the bonnet is raised. That's got a Perkins 3-cylinder engine in. So is that one, but the bonnet line, oh, it is raised, yes. There's a good finger pincher there between the steering wheel and the bonnet, the raised bonnet. The Perkins engine stood higher than the standard original Ferguson engine. Hence they had to lift it up, lift the bonnet up to get them in. One of the last of the Field Marshals coming round again. It squeezed into the 1960s, although I think production had finished by then, hadn't it? No, that's the Series 2, yes, you're quite right, Malcolm, yeah. The small air cleaner.
Now you can always tell the two by the two handbrake levers.
Well, there's a 574 International, one of the worldwide tractors. They would normally have been fitted with a safety frame, a rollover frame, which was a legal requirement by then, but some were taken off for working in buildings. Then you've got a Fowler Marshall crawler there. This was basically the Field Marshal tractor, but went up to Fowler's who fitted it with crawler tracks. Probably one of the most uncomfortable tractors you could want to drive.
But you've only just got to look at it. You can see what the bouncing effect has on the driver of that one. You cannot stop that.
Nuffield Universal 4, one of the earlier Nuffields, once described by a friend of mine as a thoroughly reliable but boring tractor. Alice ED40, quite a relatively rare tractor, built in this country, but it didn't really sell in any quantity because they hadn't got the dealers to do the business for them. First of our David Browns there, in the later colour scheme of David Browns, the cream and chocolate. They originally started out in hunting pink, like the one immediately behind it. It's Cropmaster, I was trying to think of its name.
Is it a VAK1? It's a VAK1. 1A.
1A, yes, yes. Little John Deere there, a Model L. John Deere nearly always had horizontal two-cylinder engines for many, many years, but that model was a small row crop tractor. Very useful little tractor for down-the-row cultivation and work of that sort, which a lot of these tractors were used for before a lot of the melter sprays came into being.
I'm pretty certain you'll find that the engine in there is actually a Nova engine or Novo engine.
Is it? Yeah.
I had one of them once, but didn't have an engine. Mine had a Ford 10 car engine in it. But I found an engine to fit in there, and it was a Novo or Nova.
Grey Fergie there with a petrol TVO engine. And then we've got a standard Fortson, a much earlier one, with the water washer air cleaner. Instead of putting oil in the air cleaner in that, you filled it up with water, which was fine, except in the frosty weather, of course. The Ferguson 35, that was the one that succeeded the grey Fergie, the grey and gold, and is the last true Ferguson. After that it became Massey Ferguson, which we got an example there of a 135, which was very much in its working clothes. Quite an early one with the what we call the elephant ear mudguards. Later on they went to a bigger and wider mudguard on them, of course. Then we got the first of our Fortson Majors. These indestructible old tractors, which you can see here very much as it's been found. Probably very much work in progress, but it's running nicely. Another International B275, one of the earlier models that they built. That followed on from the 250, the first tractor that was built in the Bradford Works. The 35X, very nice tractor there. The X denotes that it was fitted with multi-power, which gave it double the number of gear speeds. The Fortson X, the Ford introduced this as a competitor to the 35, which has just gone past, because the 35 had a big market share and Ford wanted some of it. But when they decided to build a small tractor, they didn't have an engine for it, so they actually had to buy it off their rival, off Ferguson. Another very nicely restored 35 there with that's got the 4-cylinder diesel, well known for being an appalling starter, but people have found ways around that problem.
Yeah, that one's been modified.
No compression.
That one's been modified. It's got heater plugs in, which possibly meant it came from a standard Vanguard van, which they also fitted in there. I've actually got one of those engines on an old generator at home, and you can go to that anytime you like in the winter, and it will always start.
Now we've got something very different. We've got a Chamberlain built in Australia, fitted with a GM 2-stroke, I suspect. Very sturdy tractor, typical of the sort of product that came out of there. Another John Deere, Malcolm?
Yeah, this is an AR. This is the row crop version of the Model A. And row crop, of course, meant that you could adjust the wheel width and the lights to suit the width of the crops you were cultivating. Other than that, it's basically the same thread all the way. Twin-cylinder horizontal engine. Flick the flywheel to start it. Usually decompression taps on the side.
A Farm All A, International Farm All A, built in the States, and you'll see how everything's offset to one side. Engine and gearbox to the left and the driver sitting on the right. This gave them a good view of the implements, which were often carried between the axles for down-the-row cultivation work. Another little Nuffield here, a 342, 3-cylinder engine, 42 horsepower. My word, you can imagine when Harold Fox bought that Fortson Standard new and somebody went out to work on it, he would think he was Jack the Lad. Still in its working clothes, so to speak, it's never been repainted, but running very, very nicely. That one's got the narrower wings, so that indicates it's a wartime one, when they cut the wings metal down to save on metal, which was very precious stuff, of course. Later Major there, Malcolm, good tractor.
Yeah, there's so many different versions of them, and when you think they were rated at about 50 horsepower, and it's always fascinating that the tractor pullers got hold of them, and they'd sometimes put about 500 horsepower through those back ends, and they still stood it.
Yes. So the engineer who designed it would have had quite a telling off from the for over-engineering the whole back end of the tractor.
Some of them used to suffer with porous liners.
Yes.
The water would get through the liner into the combustion chamber and then make its way down into the crankcase as well.
Now the 5000 that's just leaving as the Ford is a selector speed. If you look very carefully by the driver's knees, you'll see there's a little quadrant there with a shiny lever, and that's its gear lever. And given the opportunity, You can change gear on that on the move. It was a 10-speed box. It was before its time, really.
We used to call them selector jerks.
Yes, they were.
I like the little diesel Cropmaster there, MOD 530. You always look that they've still got these passenger seats on the left-hand side, because in those days there was a lot of farm implements that required an operator as well as a tractor driver. And I know that many a romance was encouraged on there when they used to have to reach down for the throttle. And if you weren't careful, if you were sat on the left-hand side with your foot, often as not, the drop arm from the steering box would come back and crush your foot nicely. So whilst you were there squealing with delight, you had your foot being crushed by the steering linkage.
Ford 5000 just going away from us, very nicely restored. Well, probably better than as new. Modern paint, of course, has come on so much to the finish of these tractors. They wouldn't have come out looking as good as that when they came out of the factory. And of course, as the years went by, the paint disappears, as you can see on this dear old Major, which is gradually being brought back to life. And here's one that's been done, as you might say. The last of the Majors, the grey-wheeled Majors, 65 horse, I think they were. They were quite a big, strong tractor in their day.
And it's also what they call live, which means it's got a dual clutch in it, which if you were, say, baling and you came across a big wad of hay in the middle of the swath you were baling up, you just put the clutch down, that stopped the wheels from turning, but the power takeoff shaft kept going. So you could control the feed to the baler and things like that.
It was a great boon when you were baling. I can always remember approaching a lump with the baler and deciding whether you were going to risk it or knock it out of gear.
Or hit the shear bolts off.
Yeah.
Now you know why tractors don't have horns, because if you do that, you curse and swear like mad, so you don't need a horn. The John Deere there, I don't know whether we've seen that one before or not. I don't think we have, not that one. Didn't miss what model it was, but that's got one of the optional extras on it of an electric starter. You can see on the top the two fuel tanks there. The little round one in the back has got the petrol in it, and the larger one has got the TVO, which is tractor vaporizing oil.
Grey 30 has gone past, fully restored, fitted with the automatic hitch hook on the back for picking up a trailer. And, oh, we got an early Fordson here. This is probably an industrial version, because we've got headlights and the driver sat outside. It's a straight petrol as well, with a battery, of course, because you've got headlights. A lot of those were built for the RAF.
That one actually belongs to Nick Brine, who's used to be very prominent in the South Somerset Agricultural Preservation Club. And as I say, that's an industrial one, which they really saved metal on the wings there, because they didn't put any on it. But the petrol engine would go a lot faster, would enable it to go a lot faster than a standard Fordson would.
Yes, but you just needed some brakes. That was a tricky bit. So there's a Dexter just gone away from us, going round for the second circuit, and a Fordson Major, and one of the last of the field marshals there. They went to Orange in the last days. That one's got linkage on the back, 3-point linkage.
I've got a feeling that there was a firm in Scotland, which it may have been the Scottish Aeroplane Company, that made hydraulic systems to go on these tractors to try and keep them going, in other words, with modern equipment.
So there's an earlier version of the Marshall, the Model M, and that one you can see on the back has got a little built-in winch. You can see the ground anchor that's tucked up. You drop that down, of course it digs in the ground and makes the tractor sit still and winch something towards you.
Yeah, they were often known as contractors' models, and a lot of them, you had different gear ratios in them, because some of them, the top gear would only give you about 4.5 miles an hour, compared with a road one that would give you about 9 miles an hour, which was dependent on what you were going to use the tractor for. But usually the low top gears were had by contractors, particularly in the logging industry.
Well, here's an interesting Fordson Major. This is fitted with, I think they're roadless tracks, aren't they, on the back?
Yeah, a friend of mine had one of those once. We used to call it a chip machine for cutting.
drove one of those half-track roadless tractors that's going along now. It's very, very noisy, but the grip was, oh, it's tremendous grip on there. You go up hills and down dells, and they were very good.
Yes, I can imagine that clattering. It's worse than sitting on a crawler, really, because we always, Jonathan and I, we always talking about caterpillars. We always call them clatterpillars. Oh God, have I got to take that caterpillar today? Of course, when they were working hard, they weren't so noisy, but if you were on a box or something like that, which entails some fairly high-speed running, you get quite a rattle off. He had a vicar's crawler at one time. That would go so fast you could throw the cloth past your ears as it's flying across the field. Right, well that's the 60s, 70s era. Oh, it's quite a wide band there of ages, because the M at the back would be, well, late 40s, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be pre-war, the Model M?
Sorry, I was...
Marsh Lem, would that be pre?
Oh, they were back in the 30s.
Yeah, I thought it.
That was the forerunner of the early Model M's. Some people reckon they were modelled on a Land's Bulldog. Whether that's... It's a story that's been going around, but whether it's true, don't know. But that was the Model M Marshall.
That's a good way to start an argument amongst the tractor.
Oh, yeah. So this Sportsman that Nick's got, that's what they call an industrial one. It's got an all-petrol engine, and I'm pretty certain that one hasn't got any governors on it. I can't see for certain because they're on the other side if they were fitted. An HHHY, that's a Bristol registration, so it came from the Bristol area with its registration. But they used to use those in industrial, and they used to also use them in the RAF for humping bomb failures and the likes around during the war. Not that I was there.
Apparently they went even quicker because they were usually filled up with aviation spirit.
Oh yeah, but they didn't have a governor on the engine.
Yeah. Well, we're changing era again now. We're going up into the what are now called the modern classics. Mark has just said, don't ask me anything about these. No, well, we're all in that boat.
Although they're old tractors and such, or some of them are, but to me they're modern tractors. Even the little Ferguson 35s and the Dexters, because a lot of farmers still use them. Whereas the old field marshals and that, you won't find one of them used very often.
So we've got a small but varied selection here of the more modern tractors. Now we're up now into, this is the New Holland TM165, which of course New Holland took over Ford. So they've retained the colour, but they had to drop the name after a certain period of time. 165 probably suggests its horsepower, and when you look at that, that's a W at the front, which is it's 2000. And then we've got a John Deere, supplied by Tingles, just down the road at Wells.
Interestingly, John Deere started, he was actually a ploughshare maker. And the man came around for tractors, he didn't have any. So he actually bought the Overtime Tractor Company, and then their colours was green and yellow. And the colour scheme is one of the few companies that's kept the same colour scheme throughout their production life, and they're still using the same colours now. That's that green and yellow livery.
IH955 going around there, lovely big 6-cylinder engine in that. The engine was built in Germany. The rest of the tractor was sometimes built in Germany and sometimes built in France, but they were imported and sold here. We built the smaller tractors in the international factories here, and we did a swap sending those out. It's carrying the first of the proper real comfort quiet cabs, and that cab was designed by Porsche, believe it or not. It's got air conditioning. The Ford, as I say, that's got a flat floor cab which effectively lifts the operator up away from all the transmission noise with a fully insulated floor, because that was the only way you could really get the noise level down to acceptable limits. The John Deere, one of their earlier versions of the quiet cab there, quite a roomy cab. You can see it's a two-seater. The 955 was the smallest of a range of 4 of those tractors that International built. And the last one again, a John Deere, again with a similar type of cab. It's always interesting to look at tractors that come to a show. That's a 1996-97 registration, P at the front. When you look at the collection of tractors